And I have spoken with people, and I have showed you, the audience, people with chemical burns on their skin. She sent us pictures of these small bumps. I don't know, Zaina. Sounds like a fucking emergency to me. The governor should probably go there. I don't know, talk to residents. He's now pushing to ram through another lithium battery plant. Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. If we had to guess who has been the most, well, not guess, if we had to decide who's been the most craven, brazen, non-subtle corporate Dem already announcing his 2028 presidential campaign, that would be one Gavin Newsom, who is now, as LA, I guess he's done with LA wildfires, you know, like, doesn't he have to help with the recovery? There's also a massive lithium battery fire in Northern California we've been covering that's sickening. I mean, hundreds of residents as far as 50 miles away. This was over 2 months ago. People are still sick, chemical burns, nosebleeds, fatigue, headaches,
we still
problems
get
breathing.
Right.
Yet he's got time for a podcast to have right-wingers on that he just allows them to launder their lies without challenge them. This is the governor of California, the 5th largest economy in the world. So he's got time for a podcast. And apparently he is now, this is the article from Politico, sending prepaid phones, AKA burners, to tech CEOs. Well, boy, is he meeting this progressive moment. Gavin Newsom is making sure California's business elite could call him. Maybe. Roughly 100 leaders of state-headquartered companies have received a curious package in recent months, a prepaid, inexpensive cell phone, commonly known as a burner, for those of you who haven't seen The Wire or Better Call Saul, programmed with Newsom's digits and accompanied by notes from the governor himself. Quote, "If you ever need anything, I'm a phone call away," read one note to a prominent tech firm CEO printed on official letterhead, along with a hand-scrawled addendum urging the executive to reach out. It was Newsom's idea, representatives said, and had already yielded some, quote, valuable interactions. This arrangement surprised some people Politico spoke with, largely because Newsom is already known as an inveterate texter whose digits live in many business titans' contacts. He's also long been seen as more aligned with business interests than the legislature. It sure seems that way. The proverbial adult in the room when private pillars like Silicon Valley need a sympathetic ear or veto. I love how Politico calls that the adult in the room rather than just a corrupt asshole. But Newsom wanted to convey that he's intent on maintaining California's competitive edge. Phones are still going out. I don't know what the laws in California are on communications. I know there are FOIA laws for email, phone logs. I think text messages are included. Why is Gavin Newsom sending out burner phones to, I don't know, is it Elon Musk? Is it Jeff Bezos? Is it Google CEO?
Hey, CEOs, have a secret conversation with me that can't really be traced back to you.
I mean, that's just so like cartoon corruption. Nothing.
It felt like an Onion article.
I mean, like, I'm not going to lie. I have used a burner phone. I won't say for what, for reporting so that certain things can't be traced, but I'm doing it to conceal good things. Like I'm doing it so that certain nefarious actors can't track communications with sources, or a source has used a burner phone. So there are examples of a burner phone being used to conceal a source's identity, to conceal certain things so that corporate America can't get it or the government can't get it. But this is so, I guess, people doing Freedom of Information Acts or can't get access to your texts, or, I mean, why can't they just call you on their phone? I'm sure they have a few if they're billionaire Silicon Valley. The thing is wild. And I want to draw the contrast, Zaina, because we've been covering it and I'm trying to keep it out there as best I can. He's doing his little podcast. He's now sending burners out there. I mean, this literally sounds like The Onion. while hundreds of people, it might be more than that, in Northern California, Monterey County, California. So we're talking an hour away from San Francisco. Over 2 months after a massive lithium battery fire. If you're new to Status Coup, you might not know about this because the mainstream media has been ignoring this. We haven't. There was a massive lithium battery plant, the world's largest lithium battery storage plant, the world's largest. Over 100,000 lithium batteries burned at this plant in January. It released toxic levels of chemical all over what they call the salad bowl of America, because 70% of our vegetables are produced on the farms right next to this plant. There's also
the equivalent of dozens of chemical bombs.
Shit ton of fruits too. So I've been going to the market, and my wife and I are having trouble finding strawberries because a lot of the strawberry brands like Driscoll's are farmed right there near the plant. And independent test, the EPA, of course, as always, didn't find any problems. But independent testers found elevated levels, high levels of heavy metals contaminating the soil where the vegetables, the fruits are the crops are farmed. So there are people still sick. I'll just show you. This is just from today, looking on the Facebook chat. And I'm posting images. This is a private Facebook group for the Moss Landing. That's the name of the plant. Moss Landing is the area in California where this plant burned. I'm posting 2 images because these are people I've interviewed and I know they wouldn't mind me posting. Colin, if you could put up the first Facebook post I put there. So this is Shiri, 64 days, meaning 64 days after this fire. 64 days being ill, being ignored by the government, writing to the EPA, calling Senator Laird, that's their state senator, contacting Governor Newsom, going to multiple doctor's visits, trying to explain that I'm not crazy, doing research about how to help myself and the community, keeping a symptoms journal to help when we do find someone who could help us, learning about lithium batteries, being disappointed by hearing the effects of nickel, manganese, cobalt on the human body, struggling to breathe, massaging my aching lymph nodes, taking my fluctuating blood pressure, drinking lots of water, getting blood work, having urine tests, waiting on test results, waiting. This is just one woman who had to move. She lived 8 miles away. Fortunately, she had the means, so she moved a couple towns over. She's now 15 miles away from where the plant is. She's still having severe symptoms. This is not anecdotal. I have interviewed, and Tina went there on the ground for us. Thanks to you, Status Coup's paying members, funding this kind of reporting. We're talking to dozens of residents, nosebleeds, chemical burns, headaches, dizziness, nausea. I interviewed a pregnant woman who was 1,000 feet from that fire. She's having issues. Her daughter's having issues. Animals are having issues. Colin, let's show the other post. That's where these pictures go with. This is from Jody, who I've interviewed a few times. March 19th, so a few days ago. I went outside today in the yard, and when I came back in, I noticed small bumps all over my hand and down my arm. I assume these are hives. Has anyone broken out with strange small bumps since the fire? Kind of worried. I try to stay inside as much as possible, but went outside a bit more today in the yard, and now this happened. I don't ever get bumps like this. Somebody responded, yep, Mama and I both have. Definitely symptoms from the fire. And I have spoken with people, and I have showed you, the audience, people with chemical burns on their skin. She sent us pictures. It's hard to tell, but she sent us pictures of these small bumps. So you see a little bump there on her hand, little rash. So I don't know, Zaina. There you go. Sounds like a fucking emergency to me. The governor should probably go there. I don't know. Talk to residents. Find out what are you going to do for these folks? Find out you're going to give them access to Medicare. He hasn't declared a disaster, just like Obama didn't declare a disaster in Flint, just like Biden didn't declare a disaster in East Palestine. Newsom, as far as I know, has not requested that President Trump issue a disaster declaration for this. And I don't think Trump will anyway. But to be clear, and everybody that's watching, make sure you understand, this is not only a California story. Let me repeat. This area produces 70% of all American vegetables. Google Salad Bowl of America. If you go to the store and you look on the box that you're getting your kale or your spinach or name your vegetable, a lot of it will say Salinas, California, Castroville, California, Monterey, California, a couple other cities in Northern California. These are all farms near this plant, and there are people as far as 50 to 75 miles away from this plant that are having symptoms 2.5 months later. Gavin Newsom is too busy, cradling Steve Bannon's balls and Charlie Kirk's balls on his podcast as he's sending out burner phones to tech executives, which I don't even know what to say. I don't. Somebody, is there like an ethics lawyer in California? Because it seems illegal to me. He's now pushing to ram through another lithium battery plant as Northern California is still reeling from this fire. Governor Newsom announced Wednesday that he has this was last week, has, quote, cut the red tape to speed up work on a Fresno County solar and battery storage project. This comes 2 months after the largest battery storage facility in the country, located in Mass Landing, caught fire and burned for days with possible dangerous smoke concerning nearby. I love possible dangerous smoke. What's the point of even having these local news outlets? Possible dangerous smoke. No, all the residents are just fucking, totally making up the symptoms. They're all hypochondriacs. They're faking the nosebleeds. It's all psychosomatic. Possible dangerous smoke. Get the fuck out of here. Newsom said he was going to, quote, streamline the process for legal challenges that could cause long delays. In California, we're in the how business. We're moving fast to achieve our world-leading clean energy. I can't read this anymore. And to be clear,
great. So it's the Ezra Klein abundance philosophy that we've seen circling around, which yes. I'm doing a piece on Wednesday. It's basically gut all in any kind of, and the Democratic Party is now pitching this too, but gut all regulation. It's Reaganomics 2.0. It's like neocon gone wild, and it's trickle down economics. But this is what the burner phones are about, Jordan.
But I just want to be clear, because this fire, and if you're new to this story, there was the original fire that went on for days in January. And with lithium battery, if it burns, the fire department can't put it out. Lithium is reactive to water. So all you could do is let it burn. So that smoke, which released hydrogen fluoride, which is a very toxic gas, I don't give a fuck what the EPA says. They claimed, we're not seeing it in the air. Well, the people's symptoms, hazardous waste experts I spoke with, and a former fire chief I interviewed said the symptoms residents are having match exposure to high levels of hydrogen fluoride, which is a toxic gas that at high levels can kill you and can give you cancer. So not only was there the original fire in January, it reignited a month later in February. So they've been exposed now twice. And even if the fire is technically out, the damage is done. It was in the air for days and days and days, and it's in the soil. So this guy, to repeat, I don't want to weaponize clean energy, because a lot of people have looked at this story and tried to exploit it to be against solar and wind and electric vehicles. There is good and bad with all energy. With lithium and electric vehicles, there are bads attached to it, including where they are made. Go Google lithium batteries and the Congo, and basically slave labor to make these. There is bad in terms of if they burn, and they're typically burning from overheating. Water, it's reactive to water. Water cannot put out the fire. So, for example, these Tesla protests where people are burning the Teslas, you might not think about this, but there's some toxic shit being released from those Teslas if you're burning it. All electric vehicles, because they're made with lithium ion batteries. So it's there. I think it's better than fossil fuels, but if your response to this fire at the world's largest lithium battery storage that has sickened people as far as 50 to 75 miles away, which, by the way, Newsom helped ram this plant in Northern
Weren't there
California.
already warnings, Jordan? Didn't we report on warnings when this plant was being built that the facility wasn't properly scaled and properly organized, and the potential hazard for a fire starting more than once?
There was three fires.
We
yes,
reported that, didn't we?
Yeah, and there were 3 fires before this one in January. So I'm not saying don't push electric vehicles. There are other technologies other than lithium batteries that are being found to be safer. But the fact that the governor is doing a podcast and sending burner phones to his tech feudalist bros instead of being on the ground as an emergency responder like he was for the LA wildfires for this Northern California lithium, because this isn't only California. It affects all of our most of our vegetables and a lot of our fruits. And now he's trying to ram through another one. Well, if they're trying to ram through another one, do they have an emergency response plan? Because they certainly didn't have a competent one here. Do they have a way to put out the fire rather than just let it burn? Because that was the only thing they could do here. Where are they putting this new factory? It's
what
certainly not going to.
Is he making exceptions for? Is he going to tell anyone?
So this is not about, this is not about fossil fuels versus clean energy, because most common sense people would say we're all for clean energy. And there's a whole lot of mines and refineries and fossil fuel and chemical plants and plastics factories that are very dangerous and have been exploding and releasing all sorts of toxic shit. But the bottom line is, where are you putting these plants? What are the safety protocols? What are the regulations being put in place? And are they being followed? And do you have an emergency plan? And if there is a disaster, what is the government response? Because the problem here is the only time you could get a disaster declaration declared is for hurricanes, is for tornadoes, is for natural disasters. And that's because of a law called the Stafford Act, which has said that Republicans, by the way, pushed for because it gave states' rights, meaning the federal government can't just come in and take over the response because the Republicans want states' rights. Well, this also meant if it's a non-natural disaster, if it's a man-made disaster like Flint and East Palestine and Northern California, Moss Landing, you can't, by the letter of the law, you can't declare it a disaster. You could only do a state of emergency. And the difference is, state of emergency, you can get some resources from the federal government, but the federal government can't take over the response. If you get a disaster,
less investigations, it limits federal investigations into what happened.
So if you get a disaster declaration, the feds could take over, FEMA could go in, the Army Corps of Engineers could go in, and you could get access, if you need healthcare, to Medicare or Medicaid. They're not issuing a disaster declaration. So I got news for you. If it's Gavin Newsom, and I'm sure the same people doing rah-rah for Bernie and AOC now, they will come back home. They will be pushing Pete and Gavin. We will be reminding the masses every single day of the week and twice on Sunday that Gavin Newsom is a dime a dozen corrupt fuck, just like the rest of them, with better hair and a better smile. Okay? But we are not going to let this go. And to the people in Northern California, we're going to try and stay on this, just like we've stayed on Flint, East Palestine, like Kalamazoo, Michigan. We've covered that graphic packaging releasing toxic levels of gas. Conyers, Georgia, had the biolab fire that released chlorine gas into the air. We're trying to cover and stay on as much as we can, but we need help, which is why we're looking to hire the next reporter. Okay, Zaina.
Seems like there needs to be some mass organizing against California's very own American psycho Patrick Bateman, meaning Gavin Newsom.
Absolutely. So it would be nice. I'm glad that, lefties and even some normies are lashing out at Gavin Newsom and his disgusting podcast. But maybe we could point out the fact that he's letting the people of Northern California slowly die and get sicker because of a toxic chemical shroom that enveloped them, and they're still sick.